For my riding expectations, a motorcycle must handle. In the day, I owned a string of British BSAs, later 2 BMWs and a Honda Goldwing. A rigid engine mount Evolution Sportster is approximately the same weight as my triple-cylinder 1969 BSA Rocket 3 or its counterpart, the Triumph Trident. The handful of Evolution Sportster models that actually target handling would be more in step with a vintage British bike. Years ago, I rode my son's Yamaha YZF R6 sport bike for several hundred miles. The traditional air-cooled V-twin cradle-frame Sportster is not a modern sport bike by any stretch. If you want true sport bike performance and handling, along with riding in a crouch mode for hours, buy a sport bike. The Evolution Sportster is a cruiser bike. Some Sportster models are better suited for curvy roads than others. An XR1200 or XR1200X comes closest to true sport bike performance and demonstrates the capability of a 45-degree V-twin engine. For the channel, I want to best serve all Evolution Sportster owners, and that points to the XL models. To provide Sportster riders with relevant how-to tech support, the bike on my service rack should be an XL rather than an XR. In my search for the right Evolution Sportster, I'm focused on XL models for now. However, unless the XR1200s become unaffordable collectibles, an XR1200 or XR1200X would be a great addition to my stable at some point. Influenced by the British standard that a motorcycle should be responsive and nimble, I'm focused on a more controllable motorcycle. This standard influenced Harley-Davidson's introduction of the K models in 1952. The K models with rear swing-arm suspension were a complete departure from the period hardtail big twin panhead Hydra-Glide. The only parallel was Harley-Davidson's hallmark 45-degree V-twin cylinder at crankshaft design. I think of the original Sportster as a clean slate alternative to the big twin touring motorcycles, not a scaled-down version of them. At the channel, we recognize this distinction and reclaim the Evolution Sportster's rightful role as a sport cruiser motorcycle and not the gateway bike to a real Harley-Davidson. A long ride requires a suitable seat that respects your tailbone. Too mushy is not good. Too firm and I might as well be riding my Honda XR650R Enduro motorcycle in dual sport mode. I'm getting the Sportster for all-day riding and expect to walk upright at the end of that day. My preference is a seat and seat position that help a rider feel part of the machine without slumping or getting fatigued. I want to get back on the bike after a fuel stop with a smile on my face and not a grimace. I'm focusing on the best handling Evolution Sportster models and am more concerned about function than chic themes. I like history, and this includes historic motorcycles that have a reputation for handling and responsiveness to a rider's demands. These are safer motorcycles with good brakes and engine performance that match the bike's weight. I've made it to 75 years, 61 of these years with a cycle license in my wallet. In that period, I've avoided dropping or crashing a road motorcycle. Riding a motorcycle is like a gambler marking a Keno ticket or rolling the dice. It's the same odds and risk each time we ride. As a long-standing Nevada resident, I'm not a gambler, but I do hedge bets when riding motorcycles. This includes riding well-designed and engineered performance models with better acceleration, brakes, and steering response. I want the best handling possible, not a bike that just goes along for the ride, which narrows my choices in an Evolution Sportster model. I'm seeking an Evolution Sportster that can meet this standard, and frankly, I won't settle for less. I'm after an Evolution Sportster with a higher degree of factory sport-like performance. The channel is supportive of all Sportster models. Our shared denominator is the chassis and powertrain. By design and for mass production purposes, Harley-Davidson has used common frames during each Sportster era. Chassis differences center around the front and rear suspension, the wheels, tire type and sizing, brake options, the front fork and handlebars, seating, and the controls. There are a few models that feature performance engine upgrades and tuning. More often, the powertrains in a given model year are common, with slight variances in exhaust design and tuning. Ruling out the XR1200 for now, a few production XL Sportsters meet my criteria. Breaking this down by Evolution design milestones, there are rigid mount models versus rubber engine mount and carburetor versus electronic fuel injection. For the K model flat track racer, the high-performance KHK street model forward, Harley-Davidson engineers have known which performance improvements make a difference. For the rigid engine mount era, all of the Evolution Sportsters through 2003 have a carburetor and trapdoor access to the transmission gear sets. Sportier handling emerged with the 1996 XL1200S Sport model. Dual front disc brakes, a better lane angle, adjustable suspension, and emphasis on cornering were selling points. Performance reached a whole new level in 1998 with the factory addition of Buell Lightning cylinder heads, a bump to 10-to-1 compression, and a single-fire ignition. Triple disc brakes carried forward from the 1996 and 1997 Sport chassis. The better-tuned, fully adjustable suspension with ample ground clearance distinguishes the XL1200S. This puts the 1998 to 2003 XL1200S Sport on my radar screen. The bike offers a weight savings advantage over rubber mount era Sportsters plus unique access to the transmission for in-chassis service. The CV40KN carburetor is standard for XL models from 1988 through 2006. For demonstrating how to service work at the channel, this model represents rigid engine mount Evolution Sportsters. Next on the narrowed list is the 2002 and 2003 XL883R. This model holds particular appeal to me. I am a big fan of the XR750 flat track race bikes that dominated AMA racing for decades. 1970 and newer XR750s did not have a production street version. The XL883R came closest with a theme style that captures the look and profile of an XR750. Although this motorcycle is clearly a production Evolution Sportster, it features tunable suspension, ample ground clearance for better lane angle, and triple disc brakes with dual front rotors. Dual front rotor brakes are only found on the XL1200S Sport, the XL883R, the XL1200R Roadster, the XR1200, XR1200X, and the 2016 to 2021 XL1200CX Roadster. A distinctive seat and XR750-inspired fuel tank contribute to the XL883R's somewhat lower wet weight. 883 engine power is sufficient for many owners. If power seems lacking, the lower end of the Sportster's Evolution V-twin engine is essentially the same between 883 and 1200 engines. Installing an upgrade 1200 piston and cylinder kit has no impact on engine balance, nor will it overload the lower end. A dedicated big bore kit with detailed instructions for the swap is a straightforward upgrade once you address the cylinder head needs. The CV40 carburetor will require rejetting to match the increased displacement. When building an 883 into a 1200, some use 1200 performance heads, while others follow the cylinder head modifications required for using 883 heads atop larger bore 1200 cylinders. There is a substantial aftermarket for 1200 conversion kits, including official Harley-Davidson Screaming Eagle kits for specific applications. Aftermarket suppliers offer various levels of power in their big bore upgrades. Buying an 883 model is not a stigma in any way. If I wind up with an XL883R, installing a 1200 kit would be a beneficial how-to video project for the channel. Moving into the rubber engine mount era means no more trapdoor access to the transmission. A complete engine teardown is required when making transmission repairs. Notably, the rubber mount engine and frame changes also add 70 pounds to the motorcycle. This is like permanently toting a smaller passenger on the motorcycle. The CV40 carburetor carries forward in 2004 to 2006 rubber mount Evolution Sportsters. The 883R continues with carburation, and an XL1200R Roadster comes online. Preserved are the sportier adjustable suspension and the dual disc front brakes. This feature distinguishes the Sport models. In factory trim, The closest likeness to the classic XR750 flat-track racer is the XL883R. 2007 up XL883R models have sequential electronic fuel injection, like all other Sportsters, while the weight gain of rubber mount engines and frames turns many buyers toward the old rigid engine mount models. EFI does help offset the weight gain. The efficiency of EFI and performance tuning will meet emission standards while delivering significant horsepower and torque. Of the heavier rubber mount 883R Roadsters, the 2007 up EFI models perform well and are fuel efficient. The Sport has a lower profile handlebar. The Roadster handlebar has a distinctive flat track style. Mid controls are part of the package. The rider position is poised for maximum control, a strategic feature of these two models. If a better grip or more foot support is desired, there are upgrade mid-control foot pegs and hand grips available. My late 60s BSAs were prime candidates for cafe racer modifications. An Evolution Sportster that fits this profile is the 2016 to 2021 XL1200CX Roadster. Here, the Roadster moniker came back in full force as Harley-Davidson transformed a production frame XL1200 chassis into a better handling machine with a cafe racer look. No holds barred. The XL1200CX front fork was upgraded with an inverted cartridge, Showa 43mm assembly. Back again are the distinctive dual disc brakes, this time with larger 300mm diameter rotors and 4-piston calipers. Low-profile handlebars top the fork, and the taller rear suspension has ample travel with adjustability like the front fork. The chassis has been leveled to achieve greater ground clearance and lean angle. Precise rake and trail settings round out the package. The weight gain that came with the 2004 Anua rubber mount engine and frame redesign raises questions. XL1200CX dry weight is 549 pounds. Wet weight reaches 568 to 571 pounds. Is that weight a deal breaker when it comes to handling or performance? The 2016 to 2021 XL1200CX Roadster engine is up for the task. 10-to-1 compression, exhaust tuning, electronic fuel and spark management, and the right camshaft profiles make the difference. Well into the emissions era, including catalytic converters, Harley-Davidson tuned the XL1200CX for usable peak torque. And torque, not horsepower, has been the backbone of air-cooled Harley-Davidson 45-degree V-twin power forever. Some reviews suggest that the XL1200CX is the best Harley-Davidson mass-produced model for performance and handling. For the channel's pick, this puts the Sport and Roadster models front and center. Each Evolution Sportster model has its place and following. And that's a good thing.